West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast. West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I'm on half the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, and with me as ever is my partner in crime, Santokie Nagilendran. Santokie, how you doing?
Yeah, Mash, we're really back, West Indies, we played India. We flew straight to Bangladesh for some white ball series, and now mere days after playing in Bangladesh, we're off to New Zealand for a proper full schedule tour, like an old school tour, 3 ODIs, 5 T20 matches, and then 3 test matches. So Darren Sammy's going to be out there for 2 months as, West Indies try to salvage something. We're out here, we'll do a lot of content for the white ball games coming up with the squads and everything like that. But we're looking to preview the big 3 test series against New Zealand. And I guess first things first, Mash, a lot of people, there's people were saying, well, we know there's pressure on Darren Sammy with his recent test results. Going to New Zealand notoriously hard. The last time we went to New Zealand, I think it was 2021 or 2020? 2020, back in the 2020. We lost the T20 series 2-0. We only played 2 matches. I think one was rained off. And we lost the test series comprehensively. I remember we were doing the podcast at that time and West Indies took licks, usual low scores and, just failure to adapt to conditions. So we didn't win any single matches on that tour. What are your expectations now, 2025, 5 years later, going to New Zealand? Do you see anything different happening, particularly in the tests?
I expect us to lose 3-0. So I expect us to lose 3-0. And actually, it's just as well we've titled this Roach to Return, because one of the reasons why I think we'll lose 3-0 is the depletion in our fast bowling ranks. And we'll get onto that in a second. But again, I'm wary, Santokie, because let's address the elephant in the room. People get onto us and will say stuff like, you never give West Indies a chance and you always talk them down. I genuinely believe that the rational take here is that West Indies will lose 3-0. We rarely do well in New Zealand. More often than not, what happens in New Zealand is teams pitch up there, they see a bit of green on the wicket, think it's actually going to seam more than it does. New Zealand bat put up 600 and then you just lost the game immediately, right? And it's just long. As you say, it's interesting that we've got a 3-match test series. Obviously, New Zealand wanted a long tour from us. I think the realistic way to look at it is 3-0, but trying to be competitive. But my concern is that just as we went to India and our bowling attack was basically Jayden Seales, in terms of seamers, was Jayden Seales, Johan Lane, Anderson, Phillip. Let's just assume that Kiwi wickets are better for seam than they are for spin. We cannot go into a test series against New Zealand with Jayden Seales, Johan Lane, and Anderson Phillip as our main seamers and expect to compete. It's just not. It's not feasible. It's unreasonable to expect that fast bowling lineup can compete with a New Zealand fast bowling lineup and therefore allow the team to compete. Hence why, and let's get to, I guess, the big talking point, will Kemar Roach therefore return?
Yeah, so I think that's the first one, as you can see on the thumbnail. Kemar Roach. So for context, obviously, Kemar Roach was, I think he was given, a player coach contract last year by Cricket West Indies, and that kind of signaled their intention to move on from him. Miles Bascombe has openly said in press conferences he's moving on from Kemar Roach, and he wasn't given a contract for the year starting in October, this financial year, by Cricket West Indies. He obviously dropped against Australia for the series. A lot of people thought he'd get his farewell at the Kensington Oval against Australia. That didn't turn out to be. We haven't really heard much about it, but last week in Barbados Nation, there was a report that Kemar Roach was at the nets, bowling intensely. Word going around Barbados is that Kemar Roach is going to get a call up to the West Indies test side for New Zealand. Mash, for me, that's obviously West Indies hitting the red button, emergency button, and that's primarily because Shamar Joseph, as we know, is injured, picked up an injury during CPL. After that tournament, hasn't played any cricket. The last press release we heard about him, he'd gone back to England for rehabilitation. Generally, if you go to another country for rehabilitation, you're out for a long period. So for me, Shamar Joseph is out. Azari Joseph.
Yeah, and I can confirm that Shamar Joseph will not be in the Test squad. I've done my digging. He is out. He won't be in the Test squad for New
Kemar
Zealand.
Joseph gone. Alzarri Joseph hasn't played again since the CPL final. Injured, so missed the white ball series against Bangladesh, a test against India. Again, it looks, from what we're hearing, it looks very, very unlikely that Alzarri Joseph's going to play. So if you've lost your two big seamers, like you said, Mash, if we're going to, we could get away with it in India with a threadbare bowling attack. Well, we didn't because we took licks, but you could justify it because it was more heavily reliant on spinners. But if you're going to New Zealand where you need that pace, we haven't. Jaden Seals, Anderson Phillips been inconsistent. Who else can you get? Are you going to call up a Johan Lane again for New Zealand, or do you go to the man who's proven it time and time again, can get swing, and has that experience? Do you call up a Kemar Roach? There will obviously be big debates on this, but firstly, Mash, what's your take on it? Do you think it's justified for Kemar Roach to make a return to the Test setup, bearing in mind the circumstances around it all?
He should never have been left out. That's the reality of the situation for me. If the argument to leave Kemar Roach out, so let's remember that Kemar Roach actually played a critical role in the Pakistan tour.
Yeah.
Remember, we took him to Pakistan and everyone was like, Kemar Roach never does well in Asian subcontinent conditions. There's no point in taking him. And then he overperformed in Pakistan and was actually critical in the Test match that we won, right? Obviously, Sammy then becomes head coach and Kemar is left out for the Australia series, with you and I assuming that it would represent the perfect, if you wanted him to retire, it would represent the perfect time for him to retire, given there was a test in Barbados. Okay, cool. Now, I always thought that was hasty. Just because when you look at our fast bowling stocks, and this isn't hindsight talking, again, remember, you and I said he should have been in that Australia test team. I guess where we have to discuss it, Santokie, is where is the line between retiring a veteran and keeping that veteran on? Like, how do you get the perfect handover or passing of the torch? John Cena's currently in his retirement year. For people saying I'm not serious because I'm making John Cena reference. John Cena's currently in his retirement year for WWE, right? And they've fumbled it. They've absolutely fumbled the bag. He hasn't passed the torch to no one. There's no new star that will be created as a result of John Cena's announcement that this is my final year on the circuit and so on and so forth. Why just ceremoniously get rid of Roach when he could have been used in a pseudo backroom player coach mentoring role for such a situation that happened to us versus India, where all of a sudden now, couple injuries and we're down to Johan Lane and Anderson Phillip? Did we really need to have Roach out and end up in that situation? And now it's to me, Santokie, I'll be real here. It's an indictment on the selection process. If Roach does come back, it's an indictment on the selection process. I like that phrase you use, where we suddenly hit the emergency button and gone, wait a minute, we do have a guy. We have a guy who's close to 300 test wickets for West Indies, who is better than a 22-year-old Johan Lane, better than a domestic stalwart in Anderson Phillip, and who can help these guys on what will be a difficult tour where seamers are necessary. So yes, Santokie, he should be back, but I think at the same time, it's an indictment that we didn't have him around in the first place.
Yeah, it's been really strange, Mash, because like you said, the whole player-coach contract, as far as we know, Roach, he's been doing informal coaching, but I thought it would have been exactly what you said there, like a backroom role, and you could step in as well and play the occasional test as well. I think the fact that Roach played the beginning of the English county season for Surrey, and Surrey essentially in England, like their quality is basically almost up there. They could beat a few test sides, right? The Surrey squad.
They'd beat us. What are you talking about? Yeah. Surrey would beat West Indies easily as well.
So Roach gets called up as an overseas for Surrey, right, in April. And we're saying he's not good enough to play for West Indies. 27 all out West Indies, absolutely crazy. And as you said, Mash, it's embarrassing because Cricket West Indies have gone on record in a press briefing to say we've moved on from Roach. So for them to, if it is true, if he is coming back, it shows how desperate they are that they're willing to obviously eat their own words and call him back. But I completely agree. Roach shouldn't have just been dropped like that. Part of me is thinking, it's just the whole thing about age, right? Because he's 37 now, they're just thinking, oh, we got a 37-year-old bowler, we need to move on. But realistically, Roach is someone who, keeps himself in top condition, is fit. As you rightly said, who would you rather have in New Zealand? Obviously, Johan Lane is there to learn and pick up. But if you're relying on someone to, hold the fort down, keep the runs down, get the wickets, you're banking on Roach to kind of, especially with the lack of experience, someone to partner Jaden Seals as well. So I'd like to see Roach come back if Alzari Joseph is out, and I think it will happen because obviously we've been hearing rumblings about in Barbados. They'll know better than anyone else. But yeah, it is an indictment on the West Indies current policy, and sort of just shows the whole confusion over everything at the moment because there's not really a clear set of policy. And it is, Mash, when we talk about West Indies, the bowling lineup is generally our strength. So this is a massive concern. As you said, New Zealand formidable at home. We've just seen them laying down England with a second string bowling attack, 3-0 in the ODIs. And we've got to go there with our brittle batting attack and an understrength bowling attack. So it's going to be a massive task ahead. The one thing I will say is we've seen it loads and loads of time again. West Indies in the final innings of the second test tend to perform really well and score over 300, right? So the fact this is 3 tests means there's no more excuses about test series being short 2 tests. We've got 3 tests to really kind of prove how good our batting is. Do you see... Actually, one other thing, before we get onto the batting, we know obviously spin's not going to be conducive, but it's definitely been confirmed Gudakesh Moti is not making a test return. He's not going to New Zealand. The T20 squad for New Zealand was announced by West Indies about 50 minutes ago, right? Breaking news. Moti, it was said, needs some technical work, needs to go back. So he's going to be working with his franchise, the Pearl Rolls in South Africa, ahead of the T20 World Cup. So, Mash, for me, this is a madness with Moti as well, because we dropped him from the India series to say we're resting him for the big white ball series. Now we're saying man's not good for West Indies out here. He's got to work on his action. What's going on with Moti, Mash? What are your thoughts on everything?
So do you know what that tells me? And I think, again, we intimated at this when the news first broke that they were resting Moti from the India series. Moti was dropped. That's the reality for me. Moti was dropped ahead of the India Test series because it doesn't take a rocket science. All that's happened now is Cricket West Indies, whoever, backroom staff, selectors, whoever, have suddenly looked at it now and now gone, yeah, actually, his form isn't forming. He's not getting back the form, right? Moti, they said, was rested for India. I'm saying he was dropped from India because his form wasn't good, right? They then pay for him, along with Shafane Rutherford and whoever else, Carty and that lot, to go to Super Kings camp ahead of the white ball series versus Bangladesh. I want to know what went on in that Super Kings camp because Carty came out of it and didn't do nothing. Rutherford came out of it and scored pure ducks. Moti came out of it and is now dropped from our white ball team. So what kind of sabotage went on in this Super Kings camp, Gus?
Man said they were just there eating roti all day.
I really want to know what waste of time activity was going on in that Super Kings camp. But do you know what it is? What it really is? I'm going to tell an anecdote, right? Last year, last summer, when I was traveling up and down England and Ireland, watching the L's on West Indies tour, there was a game, I want to say it was Cardiff. And if there's anybody watching this who was part of the West Indies travelling contingent who was at that game, or was it Bristol? I think it was Bristol. There was a game at Bristol. I think it was an ODI game. And I remember remarking to some of the CCP supporters who were at that game saying, look at Moti's body language, right? Moti, and you could tell, I know this sounds like it's hindsight, but anyone who's watching this who remembers being at that game with me will remember me saying this. You could tell from his body language, his form's off. Like but more importantly, his confidence is down. And you fast forward now, it's a year later, Santokie, and I think the drop and decline in form has been so long now that he's a human being at the end of the day. It starts to affect, it's almost like the equivalent of the yips, right? Where you don't even believe, like you don't remember how to be who you once were. And it's interesting that in that press release you were just talking about, ahead of the T20 series, they've now confirmed, I can't remember the guy's name, I'll go and find it in a minute, let me go find it. They've now confirmed that Krishnan Hurdle is now a clinical psychologist who joins as a mental skills and performance coach, beginning with the New Zealand tour, right? So someone like Moti, yes, they've sent him off to the Royals camp ahead of SA20 and whatever, but he just looks like he's down on everything, confidence, form, everything. So it's probably a welcome removal from the limelight.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you look at the year before when we played the test against England, this is the same Moti that bamboozled Stoke and Roots at Lords, right? So we know he's got the quality. Especially, he tends to do well on pitches where you don't necessarily think is going to be spin friendly. He tends to do well. As you said, he's lost his confidence. Once you lose your confidence, I think cricket now is so relentless, franchise cricket and international cricket, you don't have time to take a breather and reflect on your game. So he's been given this period now to just work on his action. But talking about spin mash, obviously New Zealand is probably the worst place to go as a spinner. Do you think Jamal Warrican gets into the 11?
No. Oh, no. Why? What? And this, again, Santokie, this is why I think Roach is coming back. Because I assume that, okay, maybe one out of the 3 tests, I can foresee a situation where Jamal Warrican gets in. But I assume that they're going to look at these New Zealand tests and assume that at least in 2 out of 3 of them, they're going to be like, Chase is enough as the front line spinner, and we're going to play 4 seamers, right? So I can foresee a situation where Warrican doesn't play more than 1 test. And actually, Santokie, you didn't say at the start, but another thing that we should probably talk about or question or discuss, and I was just trying to look at it on my phone because let me just see now. Bear with me. I'm trying to look at the fixtures for the Abu Dhabi T10, like when it ends. Yeah. Because if they're willing to bring Roach back, why not bring Holder back as well to play? Like, so I guess my argument would be this, Santokie. With both Josephs out, my seam attack, I would rather have in my seam attack Seals, Roach, Holder before I have Seals, Lane, Phillip. Do you see what I mean? Now, obviously, Holder's in their thinking somewhere because they obviously called it. They wanted to bring him to India, and obviously he said, "No, I'm doing I've got a surgery that I've got planned or whatever it was," and da 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 da. So he's obviously somewhere in their thinking. But does the test don't clash with the Abu Dhabi stuff? Does it?
No. So the test I think starts 2nd of December, but the Abu Dhabi T10 finishes like 28th or 29th of November. So it's a short turnaround. But realistically, Mash, if Jason Holder, obviously we know he got a late call up for India, turned it down for a medical procedure. Surely, bearing in mind, right, it's 16-hour flight from Bangladesh to New Zealand. Surely if they said Holder's in New Zealand at the moment with the T20 side, surely if Sammy and the coaches had said to Holder, look, we want you to play this test series, surely he wouldn't go back to Abu Dhabi and play T10 cricket and miss the test series. Surely not. Like Jason Holder, out here picking, I think it's Quetta Cavalry in the T10s.
I think he's their captain, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, but still,
I swear it's been announced that he's the captain of his franchise. So I guess there's an argument you can say that, well, he's already signed the contract. He's the captain of the franchise. He's got to go. But we've got to be pragmatic out here, Santokie. Like, no time for pride out here. Someone's got to beg Holder and say, boy, just come New Zealand. Because, come on, man, we can't be throwing... It was bad enough that we threw Lane into the Lions' Den for India. We're going to throw him into the Lions' Den again. Like, come on.
But, Mash, don't you think... Remember, Jason Holder's always been held up historically as, the guy who represents West Indies cricket, right? He kind of bend off franchise cricket for the love of the game, playing for West Indies only. If we've come to 2025, how down bad are we if he's turning down a test series, 3 test series, a big one against New Zealand, not even to play T20 franchise cricket, to play Abu Dhabi Mash? Do you know how bad that would look for West Indies cricket out here? If a man turned down a test cricket place to play in surely Holder's got to do a U-turn. I know he might be captain, and I think he's a platinum pick, but surely, man, the bag can't be that much that you'd want to give up your. Because if Holder doesn't play against New Zealand for T10, that's his test career done, surely.
Well, right. So I'm glad you just said that, because I was literally about to say to you, if they ask Holder, let's just say they follow our line of thinking and they say to Jason, come on, Jason, we need you for New Zealand. And Jason goes, well, because Jason, in Jason's defense, he might feel a certain kind of way, because he might be like, hold on a minute, you didn't even select me for India. You only asked me for India after man got injured, and then you wanted to call me up as reserve man. I'm Jason Holder out here. I'm not a reserve guy. I'm not a backup dancer, right? So, so in Jason Holder's mind, he might be looking at it as, nah, but you lot are dissing me out here because you only want to come to me when certain injuries are going on. it's not going to run like that. Like, I've got contracts that are signed. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. So that's my defense of Holder. But the flip side of it is my agreement with your point, which is that if they do go to him and say, Jason, we need you for New Zealand, and he says no, then I think he should retire from Test cricket. Because then on the flip side, it becomes a picking and choosing thing, and it can't be a picking and choosing thing.
Yeah, and I just looked. So Abu Dhabi T10 is November the 18th to 30th, right? So if we'll know pretty soon if Holder flies back after his T20 games to go to Abu Dhabi, then he's pretty much out of the Test series. But even on their main poster, they've got a picture of Holder, right? So he's obviously their marquee guy. So it'd be very interesting to see, assuming Holder's not going to play the ODIs because he's on hiatus from there. So at that point, Mash, if he doesn't commit to I know it's hypotheticals, if he doesn't play Test cricket and he hasn't played ODIs for 2.5 years now, essentially Holder's just a T20 guy for
but he's never publicly said I have retired from any format of cricket, right? So who I don't know, man. It's I can only state what my view is, and my view is if we are going to New Zealand and we need a fast bowling attack, we have to go Holder and Roach. And the critique that I'm willing to hear from people is, Mash, they're medium pacers or medium fast at best, right? But outside of Joseph, we don't actually. This is another conversation for another day. We don't have many genuine speedsters in the Caribbean. Everyone's just a medium to medium fast guy. So that's why I'm going experience over potential. The
last time we went to New Zealand, 2020 December, we played. Our bowling attack was Roach, Gabriel, Holder, Joseph, and Chase. Right, so we didn't play a spinner, but Gabriel and Joseph brought the pace, and then Holder and Roach brought the control and the movement. Right, so as you said, we don't have any speedsters that can match. I mean, Shamar basically matched what Gabriel was like, that kind of enforcer and speedster. We don't have anyone to replace it. So kind of shows the lack of options. But yeah, I agree. I don't think because it's 3 tests, I think Warwick might get 1 test, but I don't think he's gonna play all 3. And I'd like to see Holder come back for New Zealand. But that will be very, very interesting, Mash, what happens there, because I'm sure if he doesn't play the test and he plays Abu Dhabi T10, and it might be a poor ranting. If we do a video, we might see that statement drop on social media a few days later.
For all we know, Jason's going to watch this video and then drop the retirement statement at 1 a.m. Like,
you know what? People will say, "Oh, you lot make up stuff here." Listen, we done a poor video on like a Tuesday asking his man retiring, and literally like 4 days later, the man dropped an Instagram thing saying he's retired out here. So obviously. Who knows what's going to happen? It's why we say we're the #1 podcast for Caribbean cricket.
So people, you join us at some point in this video. My internet just dropped out. So when I hope, hopefully when you're watching this, I'll splice this expertly so that you can't even tell what happened. But ultimately, as Santokie was saying, if we just continue from where we're at, as Santokie was saying, like CCP. We people watch this out here. So all we are asking, we'll almost end it on this point. All we are asking is this: has Jason Holder retired from Test cricket? And if he hasn't retired from Test cricket, he should be in New Zealand along with Kemar Roach. But if you disagree, people, by all means, get in the comments. Listen, Santokie, we won't go into the batters. I think we can do a separate video around that, because really the talking point around this specific video was just addressing the story rumors around will Kemar Roach return, etc., etc. So anybody who's waiting for us to potentially talk about, but what about the batting lineup and how comes you ain't really gone into the T20 squad and the ODI squad, all that stuff will come. This was just addressing what's going to happen with Kemar Roach and our changes ahead on that particular front. Last words to you, Santokie.
Yeah, so as you said, a lot of cricket coming up. I think it's Wednesday, 6 a.m. UK time, 2 a.m. Eastern Caribbean time. The first T20 against New Zealand, 5 T20s. As we said on previous videos during the Bangladesh series, we're not really, obviously every game is important, but in terms of its relevance, going to New Zealand isn't really going to show us much behind the ahead of the India World Cup subcontinent pitches. But as always, we rally 3 ODIs, which are massive for the ranking points. and then heading up to the big test, free test. Nothing gets, the West Indian people talking like a good old-fashioned test series. So we look forward to all of that. As Mash said, the content will be coming fast and furious. We'll try to do daily reviews of the matches starting from Wednesday. So keep a lookout for that. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe, send this around. We're on Instagram, X, TikTok, Blue Sky, Facebook, patreon.com if you can donate. But more importantly, if you do have some spare money you'd like to donate, it's more important, as you can see below, support the relief fund for Jamaica post-Hurricane Melissa. Obviously, Jamaica now trying to recover from the devastation caused from the hurricane, and so every little will help the island as they try to battle what was a devastating and historic hurricane that hit the island. Mash, final words over to you.
Yeah, just as you say, I think you've hit, you made it clear. Support jamaica.gov.jm. Any little bit you've got spare, people, please go and help the reconstruction, rebuilding job that needs to go on in Jamaica. I've been Machel St. Patrick here. Santokie has been Santokie. We'll be back very, very soon with some more content. Thank you as ever for listening. See you all soon.
West Indies Cricket, Caribbean Cricket Podcast.